Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Andrea C. Scott, and I am the founder and CEO of ABC Educational Services. I hope that your day is very productive today, that you're continuing on that path, that you're getting on board with those goals, with those targets, with those projects that you have aspired to do. Telling you it's not impossible, and this is the time and this is the season to go, to get on board. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit. We're going to start a new series, and I'm so excited about this series that we have coming up. Hopefully, this information that we share with you will help you stay focused, continue to dig. We'll talk more about that a little later. But I'm so excited about this series because we always just need sometimes just to refresh, think through, look at what we're currently doing, and just trying to see how we can improve, how we can, do what we are aspiring to do better. So, our series is called GO, which is an acronym for Get On Board, Plan, Prioritize, and Revise. Time to unpin and go. So today our target, we're going to be focusing mainly on how to avoid these pitfalls of procrastination. A lot of times we hear when people say, "Oh, I'm going to put a pin on it. I'm going to pin it." Procrastination, which was one of my most favorite things to talk about because it's so easy sometimes to just delay those things, and not intentional, but sometimes those delay becomes procrastination. We actually did a couple of years ago, we did a series talking about planning, prioritizing, and revising. If you go to our YouTube page, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Feel free to peruse, push replay as many times as you need to, just to get on board on what we're talking about. So this is a refresher, really mostly focusing and targeting procrastination. So today, as I was digging, I found I said oldies but goodies, which classics. If any of you are familiar with Stephen Covey, just definitely one of a front runner. We have First Things First. I was digging, and just classic ideologies and principles as it relates to just management, how to embrace what you're doing and how to improve that. So throughout this discussion and dialogue, you'll see me referring to Stephen Covey, and then also the habits of highly effective people. These are classic. If you don't have it in your library, I'm sure this would be classic information and tools for you to refer back to and see how these principles can refer to what you're doing now. So as well, and I wanted to just do another little plug in for Stephen Covey. If you would like more information just on the continued work of Stephen Covey, you can go to www.franklincovey.com, and there it has different activities, different resources, all sorts of things to better sharpen your understanding on how to apply those classic rules and principles that relate to our management, how we live life, how we apply those principles and tools to be more effective, be more peaceful, be more successful in everything that we do. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at putting a pin in it. What does that mean? And as I had mentioned before, putting a pin in it simply just means that you're deciding to either take a look at it at a later date or discuss it at a later date. So what I wanted to do today was just share with you some principles on how to unpin those things. We put a pin in it so it would not lead to procrastination. So the first principle I wanted to talk about is don't put off today what you may not be able to do tomorrow. So we know that in our planning, we want to make sure that when we're planning, and if you decide to put a pin in it, sometimes people say table it, make sure that you are intentional about what you are planning, because we don't want to start getting into a cycle where there's too many pins and not enough activity. So make sure that you're not putting off today what you may not be able to do tomorrow. And as we had discussed, as we had discussed in our previous series, that when you're planning, prioritizing, and making sure that those today's urgencies don't be overwhelming, don't become so overwhelming that you're taking care of those urgencies that may appear urgent and delaying what you need to do for today, what you planned to do for today. So make sure that you're staying intentional with your plan and you're not trying to put too many pins in and table too many things that you planned. So we want to avoid that pitfall, because that will lead to procrastination. And how many know that even in that procrastination, sometimes we plan to do things and we never get to them. So we want to be intentional, and we want to be wise with our time and our management. So how can I arrange my schedule to accomplish what is most critical? So that's a question that you have to ask yourself, to say, how can I arrange my schedule to accomplish what is most critical? So in your planning, we want to make sure that we are arranging our schedule to accomplish what is most critical for us, and make sure that we're guarding those things that we plan. Now, we know that emergencies happen, things that we do not foresee happen throughout our day, but we want to make sure that we're guarding what we believe in our schedule is most critical, that we're keeping those first things first, whether it be in family, whether you're working on your project, that goal, that task, whatever that is, we're wanting to make sure that we're keeping those first things first and not putting a pin on those things that are critical, that are most critical for us. So, secondly, tomorrow has no guarantee of availability of time. Let me say that again. Tomorrow has no guarantee. There's no guarantee of the availability of time. So we have to think about, before we put a pin on those things, what can you safely postpone? So you ask yourself, what can I safely postpone? And Stephen Covey, I wanted to give you a quote from what he says. He says, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but schedule your priorities. So when you choose, or if you choose to put a pin in it, think about what you can safely postpone, and if you can, and consider whether or not that's something that's a priority, that you say, I need to go ahead and do this and do it as best as I can, do it with urgency, or continue on. Sometimes we may put a pin in something, we may start it and then continue it, but be cautious to make sure, and I say it again, that those things do not lead to procrastination for you. I hope this is be an encouragement for you, helping you to just kind of give a chance and opportunity to reflect on those habits. It's so much easier sometimes to say, oh, I'll just put a pin in it and deal with that tomorrow. But we know that there's no guarantee, because tomorrow will have its own plans and priorities that we have. So we want to make sure that whatever we're postponing, that we're safely postponing it. That means that we're considering and thinking about, how are we going to be able to fit this back into our schedule? How are we going to be able to fit this back so it doesn't delay what we're currently working on? So, third thing this is all about, I said this is trying to avoid these pitfalls of procrastination. We're going to unpin and we're going to get on board and make sure we're staying as targeted as we possibly can and being wise in how we manage our time. Okay, so the third one, I want to make sure we can get these all together. I'm telling you, I'm so excited about this series and sharing this information because we just need refreshers sometimes on how we can avoid those pitfalls of procrastination, especially when you may be feeling tired, when something may be taking a little longer than what we anticipated. Sometimes we just want to say, let's just put a pin on this and wait till later. So I just wanted to give you some encouragement and just some other ideas on how we can avoid that pitfall of procrastination. So our third principle I wanted to talk about is not being able to get back. Well, you cannot get back lost time. So asking yourself that question, how can I create better alignment? So how can you create that better alignment so even the event of an emergency, even the event of something or unforeseen, that does not take you out of alignment of what you are seeking to achieve. It doesn't throw you so off gear where you're continuously having to start over and over and over again. We want to avoid that pitfall because that's unnecessary energy that you're using. You're working harder than what you should when we're not creating those open space to better align on what we're doing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we continue the series, making sure that our alignment that we have is matching what our goals are. So number 4, which is my great one of the things that I really like to talk about, the 72-hour principle. And what in the world is the 72-hour principle? This 72-hour principle is something that if you decided to put a pin in it, and after 72 hours, that's 3 days, count them up, 3 days. If you have not revisited what you've pinned by 72 hours, it will increase the chance or the risk of you procrastinating or not even doing it at all. So give yourself that boundary. Even if you decide to put a pin in it, I wanted to use that 72-hour principle. I use it for myself as well, and I stick to it as best as I possibly can. I'm going to say at least 98.9% of the time I'm keeping with that 72-hour principle. It helps for you to keep that boundary for yourself to say, oh no, if I haven't looked at this within that 72-hour times within 3 days, I'm running that risk of it being a pitfall for procrastination, and we are trying to avoid those pitfalls. So if you see that 72 hours doesn't work for you, try to create your own management for yourself, but don't make it so long where it becomes a pitfall for procrastination. Like we don't want to do anything more than 5 days. Is too much time that has gone past, that you've delayed what you have that you were planning on doing or looking back at, that you put a pin in. So we want to just a recommendation. No more than 5 days. Even 5 days is a push because that's really close to a whole week. So try to keep it within that 72 hour window through to at least 5 days. Like I said, 5 days is still a stretch, but if you're starting and you're seeing that you need to use more time to revisit something, use it, but gradually wean yourself off. Because the goal is when we're revisiting or putting a pin in something, we want to make sure that we're coming back to that intentionally and as quickly as possible to avoid that pitfall for procrastination. Um, and I wanted to share this quote. I'm giving you this information just to encourage you and help motivate you to see and understand what these pitfalls are. And I wanted to share with you this quote by William James, and he said, "No decision is in itself a decision. So when you choose not to revisit or go back and look at something that you decided to put a pin in, that was you making a decision not to continue the work that you set out to do. Doing nothing is still a decision. So we have to remember that. We don't want that to be part of our decision, because that will hinder. And then here we go with that pitfall for procrastination. When we choose to do nothing, it's still a decision. So we want to be intentional, we want to be careful, and we want to be cautious in those things that we're doing. So I'm telling you that one right there got me, because I was like, wow, that is still a decision. When I just decided to do nothing, and 3 days have gone by, and I still haven't looked at what I put a pin in, I had made a decision not to do anything. And those are the little kinks that keep us from what we are working on. So we don't want any unnecessary delay. We don't want any necessary delay in what we're doing and what we're trying to establish. The foundations, even for our family, for businesses, for whatever you're working and inspiring to do, we want to make sure that it's grounded, that we don't have these holes in the ground. Because where holes come in, water can seep in, other things can seep in. So we don't want those holes in the ground of our foundation that we are building and developing as we're going forward. So number 5, and we're almost done, but I wanted to share these principles with you just to give you something to think about as we begin this series. So we're going to delve in further on everything we're discussing today, but I wanted to share these with you initially to know that although procrastination is our target, these will continually to delve a little deeper into what we're discussing today. So, number 5, discipline. This is part of the prioritizing. We have to help teach ourselves how to be self-disciplined in the things that we're achieving, because it's not going to come automatically. Okay, say it again. It's not going to be this automatic thing that's going to happen, that you're magically going to become disciplined and self-disciplined. So, self-discipline, it's not given, but it's learned. We have to invest in ourselves, invest in our lives, invest in what we're doing to create habits that will allow us to be more disciplined. So we have to make those building blocks. We have to create those boundaries, those things that we know are necessary to build the discipline that we need to carry it out. One of the things that's really important as you're building that discipline is to have that support system. Pull on your support system for encouragement, to help you better manage, to help you better figure out, especially when you have to put a pin in something, how you can safely postpone, but how you can reacclimate what you put a pin in, so you won't get discouraged or feel overwhelmed, like, okay, I don't want to do anything, because we know that's still a decision. We don't want to delay our work. So pull on your support system as you're building those habits to help you be more disciplined and to get those attributes and characteristics of that self-discipline that you know that you need just in everyday life, but more specifically in the goals. Because say, for instance, if you're writing a book, that discipline of knowing, I need to make sure I guard this time, or I need to make sure as I'm planning and prioritizing that nothing gets into this place. So we have to make sure that what we're replacing is something that we have to be disciplined enough to keep. Let me say that again. Disciplined enough to keep those habits and guard those habits and be disciplined and say, I'm sorry, someone call you, want to go out to lunch with your girlfriends. Of course you want to be social. But if it's in that time that you're trying to guard and you're building that discipline and that self-discipline, you might have to say, oh, I'd love to meet with you. I'd love for us to have lunch. Can we do it another time? Or can we do it at this time rather than this time? So be very intentional about building discipline and self-discipline, because that is the key. That's the key that's going to help you see and accomplish the goals. That discipline is so key and critical. And we're going to give you some more information on that as we continue. Number 6, and these again, we're talking about ways to avoid procrastination and just principles that you can apply to your life as you're going forward, as you're getting on board on whatever you're setting out to accomplish. Diligence. Dig. Now, what is diligence? Diligence is when you're working carefully, when you're devoted as what you are doing, and you're putting effort in. Sometimes pain, it said in one of the definitions I was looking at, said painstaking effort. Means you're working yourself to the bone. Now, if you're working that hard, make sure you're intentional about putting that self-care in so you don't get so burned out that you just stop completely. But make sure you're digging. Stay diligent in what you're doing. That will help you take care of those things that you put a pin in, and it'll get you motivated. Say, oh, I need to take this off because I don't want to stop this work that I'm doing. I want to stop this effort, this flow that I'm doing, and make sure that I'm accomplishing what I set out to do. So, and you're conditioning yourself. Number 7, you're conditioning yourself to go. That means, we talked about this in one of our series before, that balance leads to abundance. So we're making sure that we're getting on board, but we're keeping that balance in sight, that we're making sure that we're living that balanced life, that we're pursuing it, planning, prioritizing, revising, and make sure that we're still keeping our balance, because that will help your energy. That'll help you stay encouraged. That'll help you with the motivation you need to continue on, and will less likely, when you're in that vein, you will less likely want to put a pin on things that come. You'll have that energy to say, no, let's just go ahead and dig. We're going to have that diligence. We're going to work at this, and we're going to keep going. So, number 8, and we're almost done here. Want to make sure that I'm relating to everything. The main thing is to keep the main thing, and that's something that Stephen Covey has mentioned in one of his famous quotes, making sure that the main thing remains the main thing. So when we're conditioning ourselves to go, make sure that it stays in front of you. We got to always keep that in front to make sure that whatever we're doing, that the main thing stays the main thing. And the last one is to make sure that whatever adjustments you're made, that are made to benefit you, don't weigh you down. So we got to keep the main thing, but make sure you're not so overwhelmed. And as we talked about before, avoiding this constant cycle of revising or having to start all over again. We want to avoid that, because that will wear you out quicker than anything else. And we want to stay energetic. We want to stay encouraged. We want to stay motivated to keep doing what we're doing. That will keep us from wanting to procrastinate. That'll keep us from wanting to not unpin those things that we've put a pin in. So, lastly, one of the things that I wanted us to talk about, as I had said before, these principles, some of them, as I said, I had, just as I was digging in my own library, as it relates to just management and what works, right? We were looking at what works best for us to achieve. We're achieving these principles are so still relevant today. And we want to apply, don't forget those things that actually still work, that are classic, that are timeless principles, that are timeless things that we've seen work over and over again. We want to keep those and hold on to those things. So the next time that we meet, we're going to dive into personal management styles and the impact on accomplishing your goals. Its impact on accomplishing your goals. So we're going to dig a little bit more on these personal management styles and what impact it has on how you accomplish your goals. So get ready. I wanted you to, for homework, I'll give you homework, just in your reading, your time that you have, and actually gathering of information. I'm telling you, these audio books are amazing to be able to use these audio books. So on our YouTube page, we have an audio book on self-discipline. And it's under that tab. It'll say get on board. It's under that tab. It actually has its own playlist. Listen to that. We're going to, next time, as we're talking about those personal management styles, see how that correlates with your self-discipline. Because I'm going to tell you, some of these personal management styles, we might need to refine and retweak, because sometimes what may seem easiest may not always be what's best, right? So we want to take a look, listen to that audio on self-discipline. I'm telling you, there's some good nuggets in there, and we're going to continue to talk about that next time that we meet and see how it all correlates together. So, keeping that in mind, we want to make sure that between now and the next time we meet, continue to be encouraged. Whatever you're doing, it's not impossible. There's nothing too hard. Know that we're here, available anytime. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can call me directly at 720-427-8901. As for Andrea Scott, be more than happy to have a free consult with you to help if you need a thought partner to kind of think through some of those things. And you can always email me if you need further direction and guidance at abceducationservices@gmail.com. Hope you stay connected. There are a lot of exciting things that we're doing, new things that we're doing here at ABC Educational Services, and I cannot wait to share those with you. So know that even as we're sharing this information with you, what we share, we're incorporating as well. So we're working together, partnering with you, ensuring that there is nothing too hard, nothing you cannot attain. That dream, that goal, it's not impossible. You can do this. We believe in you, believe in yourself, and it's time to go. Look forward to speaking with you and connecting with you next time.